This picture shows some aphids on the leaf of an orange tree shortly after radar equipment was installed at a nearby airport a number of years ago. I noticed that every few seconds, all the aphids would tense up in unison and do sort of a little dance, as you see in the picture. Upon further investigation, I found that the interval of time between the activity of each dance coincided exactly with the rotation of the radar rotor device at the airport, which was a distance of approximately 14 miles.
And we now have vast amounts of published science on microwave radiation and health effects.
The data we're going to look at are all published science, testing results, or public standards. At the bottom end of the radiation scale of what's called power density or signal strength is the minimum level at which cell phones will work, which was found to be 0.2 billionths of a microwatt per centimeter squared. Pine needles were found to age prematurely at 0.000027. At short-term exposures of 0.05, children aged 8 to 17 experienced headache, irritation, concentration difficulties, and behavioral problems. Point 1 is the biobiology or building biology guideline for extreme concern. 1.0 produced sperm DNA fragmentation and a decrease in sperm viability in vitro. Also at 1.0, the science shows the following bodily effects can occur: headaches, dizziness, fatigue, insomnia, chest pain, difficulty breathing, and indigestion. 2.5 saw altered calcium metabolism in heart muscle cells. 4.0, changes in the hippocampus affecting brain memory and learning. And at 6.0, DNA damage in cells. Switzerland, Liechtenstein, and Luxembourg see fit to set the standard at 9.5. And China, Poland, and Russia, 10.0. This is the same level at which behavior has been altered, producing reflexes of avoidance following 30-minute exposures. So how can utilities and governments get away with forcing these devices on everyone? This is how. In Canada and the US and several other civilized countries, the safety limit is set at 600 to 1,000 microwatts per centimeter squared. This so-called safety limit is literally tens of thousands of times higher than levels which are known to damage health according to peer-reviewed published science. The consequences of this development have also been predicted by the critics for many decades and can no longer be ignored. Bees and other insects disappear. Birds avoid certain areas and are disoriented in other locations. Humans suffer from functional disorders and diseases. And those that are hereditary are passed on to the next generation as existing defects.
There have now been more than 6,000 published scientific studies on the health effects of microwave radiation since the 1930s, and with the vast majority showing that there is some biological damage being done, the jury's no longer out on whether this is harmful. Even by 1972, we have the US Navy producing an unclassified report of health effects on the human body observed from microwave radiation, summarizing more than 2,300 studies.
5 pages of observed human health effects in this report include headaches and insomnia, vagomometic or irregular action of the heart, anxiety, chest pains, and changes in the operation of implanted cardiac pacemakers.
The number of children to be diagnosed autistic doubles every 5 years now. Neurological disease, Parkinson's, MS, ALS, autism, learning disabilities in children, behavioral problem in children, that's all exploding exponentially. The only development that parallels the exponential increase that we observe in neurological disease is the exponential increase in exposure to man-made electromagnetic fields. It is our experience as physicians that everybody is equally electrosensitive. We're tracking now certain sensitive parameters of it. One is an inflammatory marker called TGF-beta-1, the MMP9, that's the metalloproteinases go way up. These are inflammatory markers. The copper level in the serum goes up as a sign of chronic inflammation driven by something that's suddenly there. The hormones go way off, the neurotransmitters go way off. So we have lab tests that we can show. Here's a patient, we monitor him for 10 years before he was completely normal. Look at the lab work, it looks just as bad. Yeah, so some people have an awareness of health and goodness in them, and other people don't. But from what our experience is that everybody is affected by it. It's not just a few 3% of electrosensitive people.
So this thing about electrosensitive, 3 or 5% of people are affected and everyone else is okay. I mean, what do you have to say about that?
There are changes whether they feel them or not. Maybe they're not out there complaining about it or trying to make other people aware of what it's doing to them, yet they're still being affected by it.
While most of industry continues to use fine print and loopholes to evade accountability, there is a worldwide paradigm shift steadily underway. 60,000 doctors in the American Academy of Pediatrics are paying attention. And teachers' unions, this one of 45,000, are beginning to speak out against Wi-Fi in the classroom. Some regions are taking steps to cut the power of cell phone masts by 90%. And in many areas, towers are starting to come down altogether. But governments such as the US want smart grids and high-powered Wi-Fi mesh networks to blanket everywhere and everything. As industry cleverly camouflages itself, concealing the harm it is doing. Amazingly, our centers of medicine are seeking to bathe newborns in wireless. And this has continued on because the official line is that microwave radiation is safe enough.
The radio frequency radiation work that we did was supported by Motorola. The relationship was really very cordial and very stress-free, but only up until we started generating data. These folks were very, very upset and began to talk about how are they going to handle this, what sort of spin can we put on this, what can we expect from this, and from that point on the relationship changed. What we saw was that Motorola began to exert more and more control over the work, telling us what to do, telling us how to write abstracts, what to say in the abstracts, what to say in the papers, how to do the work. No, don't do this. Yes, do it this way. This was unacceptable. I had completed our study of DNA damage, and I submitted the final report to Motorola. The point is, I kept getting nothing from these people. They simply weren't willing to accept my interpretation of my study, my evaluation of my study, my knowledge of science at that point, and tried to urge me not to publish the study. They didn't tell me not to. They just said, no, this isn't ready for publication. And they wanted me to do more work. I think one has to exercise caution at this point. And what makes the cellular telephone research area so difficult right now is there is no money available for research other than that's coming from industry. So, I mean, what does this do? I don't have any faith in what comes out. I have absolutely none, not with my dealings with industry. So.
What's going on here? This is a wireless device which is unproven scientifically, which all the evidence so far proves is dangerous or questionable, which should therefore be studied intensely before it's released to the public. Clever people called the technology smart to make it seem intimidating so no one would question it.
The past 29 years, Dr. Deacon Lee has conducted original research and epidemiology for Kaiser Permanente in Oakland, California.
Me, a manufacturer wants to give a product to consumer, especially in this case to everybody, imposed on everybody. They are the ones who should carry the burden to prove it is safe before they can give to other people. It's not up to consumer to demonstrate they are unsafe.
There was an organization called the Committee on Man and Radiation. Essentially, the Committee on Man and Radiation intellectually framed this as a controversy that there was no such thing as a non-thermal effect. That thermal effects were the only good science, and they had good science on their side, and anyone who said otherwise was either a crank or needed to be dismissed from the area altogether.
Radio frequency radiation that we know causes a variety of biological effects, and where we have very strong evidence that it causes disease, specifically brain cancer and other diseases.
I started wondering, how are our future generations being affected by this unprecedented increase in electromagnetic radiation?
I had a son that was going to school at San Diego State University, and he called me and he said, "Mom, I've got the worst headache." He says, "I'm projectile vomiting all over my apartment." And I said, "Get to the hospital." And the emergency room doctor at Sharps Memorial Hospital in San Diego called me, and he said, "Your son has bleeding in the brain." And I said, "We'll be there immediately." And my son had surgery that evening. When he got out, Dr. Tanawai told us that my son had brain cancer, and it was either the very worst or the second worst type of brain cancer you could have. It was nothing but chaos for 7 months. We moved him back home and had to pack everything that he owned in California and brought him home, and he only survived just shy of 7 months, and he died October 11th of 2008. August 7th of 2009, I typed in cancer clusters, and I saw SDSU, San Diego State University brain cancer cluster. And I read this article over and over, and I think it put me in shock, and I ended up on the floor for the rest of the day. But sorry. I realized they were talking about my son, so I immediately started contacting SDSU, the administration, and I felt myself just being bounced around. Nobody wanted to deal with me. So I got in my car and I drove out to San Diego for the whole month of October of 2009. And I went over onto the campus. In these articles they talked about a cell tower, and I went over there, and there's this huge cell tower that's outside of this building, which towers above Nassatir Hall in room 131, where all these kids and people have come down with brain cancer. My son, Rich Farver, died October 11th of 2008, and he was in Nassatir Hall, room 131. Professor Charles Cutter died June 19th, 2008, Nassatir Hall, room 131. Lou Terrell, diagnosed with primary lymphoma brain cancer in 2008. He was in the room right next to room 131. Dwight Anderson died in 2008, Nassatir Hall. Miss Laurel Amtower died August 29th of 2010. Richard Funston died, and he was also located in Nassatir Hall, room 131. I just think that this wireless stuff, we just need to get a handle on it and warn the public. But I just want parents to know, and I want kids to know that these are very dangerous, and these are on many, many college campuses. A reporter from the San Diego Tribune that I had contacted actually called me at home, and he said, "This story will never get out in San Diego." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because of money."
After having interviewed more than 70 people from 4 countries, witnessing the profound emotion from those whose lives have been ruined, I felt myself wondering if I could ever really make a difference against corporations that are so powerful and so willing to put money before life itself.
and they hired Exponent, which is a science and consulting firm that has represented the tobacco industry. They've represented the asbestos industry. So this is a firm that industry hires to prove that dangerous products are safe.
In 1996, Congress passed the Telecommunications Act, which included a provision called Section 704 that took away state and local governments' rights to resist antennas on health or environmental grounds.
The legislation was actually written by the industry. It was also the first time in history that industries of all stripes were invited into congressional chambers and asked essentially for their wish list. And the telecommunications industry, like other industries, just rushed right in and gave them their wish list.
It took away your state and local government's ability to protect you, to protect children, schools, every environment from this kind of radiation.
I mean, this is ludicrous. This is unconstitutional. But this reflects the power that the communications industry has with our Congress.
But what I learned in Silicon Valley was there is no moral component to technology unless humans insist that it be there.
What more do you need to know? But most people seem to want to just close their mind to it and just say, oh, the government wouldn't do that, and, you know, that can't be true.
This is a mandate. This is being pushed down your throat by a company that is not responsive, by a government that is not responsible, and it's being done in a collusion that's designed to undermine the individual rights of individual people in communities across the country and around the world.
What does it say about our political system? Have we completely gone the way of corporations? Is there any representation left?
Well, I'm very reluctant to use the word fascism. As a student of history, I mean, we're nowhere near that. But the corporatocracy is a word that I'm comfortable with.
Whenever human beings are invested historically in a particular technology, then power structures build up around that fight for their own interest, just at a time when a change is about to take place to a better way of doing things. They fight for their existence like a creature fights for its existence. They are the dinosaur that is just about to become extinct, which is the need for overly centralized power producers. But it didn't escape everyone that however they delivered everything to you, made you totally dependent, gave complete access, and could be a two-way street. But what no one knew at that time was that a method of technology would be used whose byproduct was essentially radiation.
In May of 2011, the World Health Organization classified radio frequency radiation as a Class 2B potential cancer-causing carcinogen.
Our silence is golden to them. We've given them consent by being quiet. We can't afford to be quiet on this. We have to take action. This is a game changer.
These companies are betting on you saying nothing.
And you are required, in order to protect yourself, you're required to fight back. You're required to stand up and say, no, this is wrong, and I'm not going to permit it.
This is a test case for technological democracy if I've ever seen one.
The problem is you've presumed you have the right to make decisions that are harming the quality of all of our lives, our health, and children.
It does not matter why you have done this. There is no right way to force unproven and dangerous technology upon the world. And history has shown that being sorry after the fact for harming people through unproven medicines, technologies, is of no help. You do not have enough money to repay the harm that you are doing to all life.
You have even blatantly placed career lobbyists as your corporate yes-men, as heads of the very agencies that are supposed to protect the people.
This is no longer acceptable. You and your agents will be held financially and criminally liable for your actions as corporations and as individuals. The excuse of just following orders will be of no avail to those going along with this.
We're now at a turning point when great numbers of people, even those on your payroll, those most subject to your campaigns of half-truths and skewed science, are beginning to see higher, are being inspired to speak out and bring down your dreams of dictatorship, and are courageously creating solutions. This is just the beginning.
But as we begin to peel back the layers, and now we get it, and now we see behind the curtain.
Millions of people are starting to wake up to what's occurring. The game is on. The ball is very much in our court. You know, we have a tremendous opportunity, but we have to engage in that game.
While making this film, there was a part of me that just wanted to look the other way and put the lid back on the box I'd opened. But once I saw the magnitude of this issue, I thought of all the people in my life that I care about. And I knew that I had to share it as widely as I could. Whatever your political party or belief system, we're all in this together. We need wise people who see what's going on and who realize that we all have the power to change our situation. Change happens when you make a decision. Share this film online with everyone you know. You can also host a screening in your community or for your city council. It starts with us, but we are not alone. All around the world, this is a time of social awakening. A wave is sweeping the planet, inspiring millions of people to stand up to corrupt corporate governments. The veil of illusion is lifting, and we're all finding our voice. Because this agenda is being implemented as we speak, we all have to act now. Not only can we make a difference, but we must. Together, we will build a safer and more abundant world. For us, our children, and all future generations.
About this, but he can't talk. And I think that a lot of people are scared to talk, and a lot of people know what's going on here. I would say that it's better to do the right thing, because when people are silent, a lot of people can die.
As a fraud cop, I'm just wondering when the world's going to wake up. You put a story out there, it's wrong, but what the heck? We're going to go with it. We're going to look you straight in the eye, and we're going to lie to you. What are you going to do about it?
Well, it feels great to actually go out there and fight for what you believe in, and not just sit in the silence and say, oh, well, this is happening, there's nothing I can do about it, but just actually know that you can do something about it, and that you can't give up. Just always fight for what you believe in.